Hello, welcome to Little Literati. I'm Jess, and this is my August wrap-up video. I had mentioned in my last video that I was not optimistic about my reading for the month. I was going to be surprised if I was going to be able to even finish one book, and to my huge shock, I actually managed to finish 5. So I did actually read Jane Eyre. I listened to it on Audible. It was one of the Audible originals by Thandie Newton. And she did an amazing job, but I will say that listening to it had definitely a different impact on me than reading it myself. And I didn't like it quite as much because since the story is told in first person, usually when I read it, I inhabit the character. And so everything feels very real to me and I feel very connected with the characters and with the story and everything that goes on. But having someone tell me of the account, even though the exact same events happen, the exact same characters are there, I just felt a step removed from the story just because I wasn't participating in the story. I was having someone else tell me their participation with the story instead. So it was just a very different dynamic, something I was not expecting when I went into it, but I definitely learned a lot just from that simple experience, and I did enjoy the book. I just didn't love it as much as I have loved it reading it with my eyes to myself. So, lesson learned. Also, another classic that I managed to squeeze in this month was Pride and Prejudice. This was because I was chatting with one of my best friends, and we have left the book club that I had mentioned several months ago, just because it wasn't really a good fit for us, and also the book club just kind of fizzled and died anyway. So she just turned to me when I was at her house a couple of weeks ago and said, "So, what are we going to read for our book club?" I said, "I don't know, it dissolved." She said, No, what are we going to read for our book club?" I said, "Oh, well, I don't know." And we both love Jane Austen, specifically Pride and Prejudice, and so I said, well, what if we just reread that as kind of a jumping off point? So we did, and so I also actually listened to Pride and Prejudice, which was by Rosamund Pike, and she played Jane in the late 2000s version. I think 2009 maybe, 2008, 2007, I don't know, whenever that came out. She played Jane. It's the one with Keira Knightley, and she did a great job with all the different voices, and I really enjoyed her interpretation of all the various characters, and it was just fun rereading a very comfortable old friend again and listening to someone else's interpretation. So I did enjoy both of the ladies who narrated the books. I enjoyed their ability. They were both fantastic at what they did. Their voices were great. Every character was distinctive, but it was just interesting having that dichotomy between first-person narrative versus third-person and the difference it makes when you're listening to them both. So that was a very interesting thing for me to learn this month. Actually, I listened to all of these, let's be honest. I didn't read with my eyes a single book this month, but I did listen to 5 of them. So and actually all of them were rereads. I had read a few years ago Soulless by Gail Carriger, and this is a very funny book, to me anyway. I guess I should have the right sense of humor for this, because it's silly but also smart and very sarcastic, and it's about the main character has no soul, hence the name, and she has an adverse effect on the supernatural characters around her. So this is a Victorian steampunk novel featuring vampires, werewolves, and people with no soul. So it's really a funny read. She's a spinster for various reasons, and so she doesn't care really about society, and so she's on her own adventures, and it's just really a hoot. I really enjoyed Soulless, and so I wanted to reread it again, and I think it was on sale on Audible, and so like, well, this is my chance. I was going to get it anyway, but it's on sale. Bonus. I also listened to the sequel, Changeless, and I had read all 5 books a couple of years ago when I read them, plus the sequel book, which is Prudence, I think. There's Prudence and there's Imprudence, and I didn't read one of them. But anyway, so this is the sequel, Changeless, and I also really enjoyed this one until the last, I don't know, 10 pages. there's something that happens at the very end that pisses me off. And so that's why I haven't re-listened to book 3 or reread book 3 yet, because it just makes me angry. Her husband does something that really, really, really pisses me off. So anyway, I'll get over it, and reread them again. But I actually am getting these for Christmas. And so that's why I have hard copies of them. But I'm going to go put them back in the stash for Christmas presents after this video. And then I also listened to Burke, and this was actually the very first of the proper romance line that I read a handful of years ago, pretty quickly after it came out actually. And I loved this book so much when I first read it that I read it in a single day, and then like the next day I reread it again, the entire thing the next day. And it starts out kind of cheesy, I'll be honest. And I kind of rolled my eyes, I was like, really? Do I really want to be with this character who... But very, very quickly after that, it turns around, and I really enjoy the character, and there's all kinds of things in here. There's drama, and there's intrigue, and there's romance, of course, because it's proper romance. But it's clean, good fun, and so everyone that I've ever talked to that has read this has absolutely loved this book. So if that interests you at all, definitely look into it. And there are several other books that are proper romances as well now out. So this is not the only one out there anymore, and so you can definitely read more if this one strikes your fancy. So Burke is a lot of fun, and those were the five whole books that I actually managed to get around to in August. I was so proud of myself. I totally surpassed all of my expectations. I read 2 classics. Yay me! So I am hopeful that this is a ticking up point for me and going forward now that school has kind of started and everything is mostly settled in, that I can move forward and actually read books in the coming months. So hopefully I can keep up the good work. But in the meantime, tell me if you've read any of these, tell me what you read in August, and we will see you next video to talk about September. So thank you, I'll see you then.